We're going to be covering the huge escalation of tensions on the Korean Peninsula. Many international news agencies are asking the question, is this the start of the second Korean war that took tens of thousands of American and, of course, South Korean lives, estimated over 500,000 North Korean and Chinese lives? North Korea's military command vows merciless military strike against South Korea, fires artillery onto island with military bases and civilians, killing Marines, and developing the shocking video of the island on fire. South denies seeking redeployment of U.S. tactical nuclear weapons. The South has been, of course, returning fire off and on. That stopped but an hour ago. The South Korean president is saying they may go ahead and strike North Korea's missile bases. Intentionally planned attack. Japan prepares for any eventuality. China watches. White House condemns. The Russians are saying that we are in colossal danger and calling for both sides to stop what they're doing and saying that it is terrible what's happening. Of course, a flashback, the UK during last week's G20 meeting in Seoul, South Korea, said they feared a North Korean attack during the G20 summit. But none of that matters. On ABC News, MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, the headline, the top story is officials jawbone not Natalie Holloway's. The Alabama teenager, last seen 5 years ago in 2005. Well, they found a jawbone near the Phoenix Hotel, and that is the top story in America right now. Natalie Holloway, not these two huge militaries with nuclear weapons on both sides, openly threatening to attack each other, missile and artillery salvos going back and forth for several hours, dead clearly on both sides, civilian buildings and border areas smoking in fire. The North says any other provocation, full-scale war. The South says any provocation, full-scale war. And Natalie Holloway is what matters today, ladies and gentlemen. That is what is important in this country. Now, here's the larger issue, and I've got Paul Watson, Steve Watson, and Kurt Nimmo working on this. Remember 888, 2 years ago. Remember Dick Cheney basically ordering the attack via Georgian puppets on South Ossetia and Abkhazia in northern Georgia as a pretext to start war with the Russians. Our media ran the hoax that Russia had attacked preemptively. Was not true. 2 days later, they had to admit that indeed the puppet president there had launched the attack. NATO forces were involved. A day into it, NATO forces were being brought in by C-130 from Western Europe and the Middle East. The Russians rolled in mobile ICBM and medium and short-range missile trucks with nuclear weapons. Their chairman, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said they were preparing for nuclear war with Europe and warned NATO to back off. The NATO forces were pulled out. But it shows how unstable and dangerous and full of chutzpah the globalists are. It shows how they're probing and looking for the right sign of weakness to kick off some type of World War III, larger than a regional conflict and as big as World War III. You know, we got into Vietnam that killed 58,000 Americans, wounded over 250,000, killed over 1 million Vietnamese on both sides in 1964 with a staged attack on one of our ships. Months after Wayne Madsen confirmed it, mainstream media had to admit that that torpedo earlier this year that blew up a South Korean ship was German-made and during a U.S. drill. They now admit that South Korea was firing into a demilitarized area that North Korea claims with artillery in a drill. And that's what North Korea responded to. Not saying North Korea is good either. Completely crazy. But the issue is this looks like some type of provocation. We'll break it down on the other side. Stay with us. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we will not be covering Natalie Holloway. That is the top story from CNN to MSNBC to Fox, is Natalie Holloway in Aruba. They found a jawbone. It is not her. They've tested the DNA. Okay. The world is on the edge of a trigger event that could start World War III. China has a defense pact with North Korea. The United States has a defense pact with South Korea. We lost tens of thousands of troops in the Korean conflict. In fact, guys, will you pull up number of U.S. casualties, Korean War, Korean conflict? I wanted to get that number. Forgot to do that. I want to be specific about it. And for those just now tuning in, yes, we will not be talking about Hillary Clinton's hair or Natalie Holloway jawbones. Here's CNBC. World edgy on Korea. Russia sees colossal danger. No kidding. Breaking. South Korea threatens retaliation against the North. Remember this story from October 30th, 2008. Rand lobbies Pentagon. Start war to save U.S. economy, preferably with North Korea. That's prisonplanet.com. Important flashback. Here's another one. South Korea says it test fired in area before North Korea firing. Now, first they said that wasn't true. Now they've come out and said, yes, we were in an area disputed doing drills. And, let's be clear about North Korea and Kim Il-sung, the psychopathic granddaddy, his current leader, his son Kim Jong-il, and then Kim Jong-un, the new general who's never been photographed till a few months ago, and he appears as the new leader, and everyone starts worshiping him. We lost 53,686 Americans in the Korean War, and we lost a few thousand more, 58,209. And, of course, that's who immediately died in country. A lot more than that died from the wounds that they sustained. So this is a big deal. What we know is about 6 hours ago, so that's in the almost evening over there, about 6 hours ago, there was a drill on the western side of the Korean Peninsula, right up by the sea lanes and sea border of North Korea. And there was U.S. and Korean aircraft, helicopters, ships in the area doing attack drills. And that's not denied. And firing artillery on simulated ships. And it got too close for comfort. And the North Koreans have seriously escalated things. And it's very, very dangerous. But the issue here is, in fact, I forgot to tell you guys this during the break. I want to immediately call Webster Tarpley. I want to immediately call Wayne Madsen. They both are on par with each other with their caliber of research on this region. See which one of them you can get on at 12:30, an hour from now, an hour and 15 minutes from now. In between Ron Paul and Judge Andrew Napolitano coming on. I want to get one of those guys on to get their early response to this. But I remember Madsen was the first I saw early on, going to Jane's Weapons Quarterly and looking at the torpedo parts from that South Korean ship that got blown up that they blamed on North Korea, and saying that's a German torpedo. And then months later, the Chinese government said it, and then even mainstream news here, kind of as a footnote, said, yeah, looks like a German-made torpedo. Now, did the North Koreans buy German torpedoes on the black market? Or did, we know that goes on through Russia and China. Or was this a third-party purchase and done by a private contractor or a South Korean corporation or our own government? I mean, when you got a government that staged the Gulf of Tonkin, Operation Ajax, Operation Gladio, and so many other provocations, and that 2 years ago on 8/88 snuck attack Russia. Look, I'm no fan of Russia. They're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm no fan of communist China. I'm certainly no fan of North Korea. I mean, that's as tyrannical and out of control as it gets. But you notice that all the big banks, the big corporations, neocon publications, they're all on record saying if we have a big war, bigger than Iraq, that really sucks the American people in, it'll be a great smokescreen for the open announcement of world government, the carbon taxes, the global VAT, the new bank of the world. People won't be angry anymore about losing part of their pension funds or all of this austerity. It's a perfect way to unify everybody and also drive up the dollar. You notice the dollar shot up today. So did gold. It's all seen as a safe haven because America's still the big empire. Even though we're bankrupt by design, we've got the supposed hardware and weapon systems. And the biggest military, more than half the world's defense budgets combined. Here in the United States, about 54% last time I checked of total global defense spending is by this country. We build the military and train the military, finance the military to empower the globalist. So then America gets the blame while the globalists get the brawn, and never get identified. So this is a way to get everybody to pour back into dollars to prop up the economy for the globalist as they continue to consolidate. You got Europe going down the tubes. You've got a, quote, fire sale of Irish banks going on right now. So the IMF and World Bank get them in debt, put politicians in power by financing them on record to get the nation in debt. Then the big IMF World Bank come in with European EU taxpayer money, with U.S. taxpayer money, and, quote, shore up Ireland. But if you read, notice that's why they had to get them into Ireland so they'd be under that treaty last year. They couldn't implode Ireland till they got them into that treaty, as we predicted last year. Now that they've gotten them into the treaty this year, now it's a complete fire sale. They're cutting their pension funds, raising their taxes, and taking over their domestic banks, and blaming their domestic banks in the news for what happened in Ireland when the policy was set by the global central banks of the IMF and World Bank. And that is in the news today. This is out of Yahoo Finance, Reuters, by Steve Slater. Ireland hoist for sale sign over stricken banks. Reuters, Ireland banks are up for sale, the country's central bank chief said, as the government seeks to cut them down in size after the reckless lending forced the country to seek an international bailout. They are for sale, as far as I'm concerned, said Patrick Hunhan, said Thursday. And it goes on, I have been an advocate for a number of years for small countries to have foreign owners for their banks. Oh, yeah, that's freedom. See, the end of your sovereignty. And it's not some foreign government that dominates you. It's the private central banks. And that's Patrick Honohan. Dublin has already said it will intensify reform of the banks. Reforms always. See, when the IMF and World Bank takes over a third world country, reform is raising taxes, cutting services, and giving almost all your GDP to the private banks. And then after they're done with Ireland, it'll be Portugal and Spain and England and France, and then Germany, and then the United States. And it's just all publicly done in plain view, but the general public doesn't understand this. They know about Natalie Holloway. They know about O.J. Simpson. They know about Dancing with the Stars. They know that Sarah Palin's cute, and they just get caught up in the mindlessness of it as the private central banks conquer our society. Now, I want to play this Russia Today clip with how concerned Russia is here in just a moment, and also show you some of the video, what's going on for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. But that's why they would stage this. We don't know if it was staged, but that's why the globalists would stage this with Korea right now as a political diversion and to get the world to run under the wings like baby chicks of the Anglo-American establishment, scared of North Korea, who we know Donald Rumsfeld, the head of ABB, transferred the nuclear reactors to in the mid-1990s and got bipartisan backing and authorization from William Jefferson Clinton. Unified, continuity of agenda, and treason.